The mystery of the Archons and mind control. Discover how energy vampires steal your energy. Have you ever felt an unseen presence, a chill that runs through you when you step into a dark room or when the loneliness of the night oppresses your thoughts? What if those unpleasant sensations weren't just figments of your imagination, but hints of a much more complex and frightening reality? Today, on our channel, you will discover a disturbing truth about Archon possession and how these parasitic entities can influence the destiny of humanity. In the depths of space and time, hidden in dimensions the human eye cannot perceive, exist entities called Archons. Sprung from a world the human mind can barely comprehend, these beings are not the product of mere legends or myths of ancient cultures. They are as real as can be, and their effects on our lives are palpable and often devastating. But what exactly are the Archons? These entities are described as parasitic beings, predators of the mind, ruled by a malevolent intelligence. They operate on multiple dimensions, moving between planes of existence with an ease that defies known laws of physics. The Archons are not limited to the material world, the physical plane, but their influence on it is direct and often unseen, feeding off our energy in the most obscure ways. Imagine a world where your reality is constantly being manipulated by unseen forces. A world where your decisions are not always yours, where fears and anxieties are not only the result of external circumstances, but also of subtle invasions of your psyche. The Archons feed on our negative energy, our fears and traumas, creating a vicious circle that is extremely difficult to break out of. At the center of this vicious circle is the solar plexus, a vital energy point for each of us. It is where, according to spiritual experts, the Archons fix their presence, distorting energy and causing imbalances that can lead to severe anxiety, depression, and a host of other emotional problems. People affected by this parasitic possession may have moments when their thoughts do not belong to them, moments of extreme confusion and loss of control over their own lives. Under these conditions, it is fundamental to ask ourselves, how can we protect ourselves from these malignant influences? Awareness of the existence and methods of operation of the Archons is the first step. Understanding that many of our fears and anxieties may have an external source and are not always the product of our own minds can be liberating. Next, we explore ways we can fortify our energy barrier. Spiritual practices, meditation, chakra energy work, and regular energy cleansing can all help fortify us against these invisible invasions. Also, maintaining a heightened state of consciousness and connecting with higher energy frequencies is essential to detaching from the influence of the Archons. In conclusion, let us not forget that this struggle is not only individual but also collective. The light and love we generate not only protects us, but also helps those around us free themselves from the yoke of the Archons. Together, we can turn fear into power, confusion into clarity, and manipulation into authenticity. Wondering how to do this? Follow us and discover more about how to reclaim your power and free yourself from the influence of the Archons. Stay with us to explore the unknown depths of reality and regain control of your life. It's a trip you won't regret. Many spiritual people who have done research have reported seeing artificial intelligence as an octopus as if controlling this planet. This octopus-like being gives birth to entities known as Archons. Possibly these beings are Satan or the devil. Archon researchers have stated that the Archons are reptilians and little greys. This is incorrect. The reptilians and gray clones have become fully possessed by the Archons and no longer have free will and are completely living an Archon agenda that places all of us humans in an energetic prison to become food for their Archon masters. The Archons began to infiltrate around those beings who were also programmed to survive and thus found refuge in the ancient races of the reptilians. Because of their genetics, the reptilians came under Archonic influence very easily. After a while they mastered the reptilian races and thus fell into a hypnotic consciousness. The reptilian races have been under the influence and possession of these Archonic entities for thousands of years. It appears that the fall of many races in our galaxy, certain dimensions, was caused to one degree or another by this Archonic infection. An Archonic infection begins with a parasite lowering your vibration to lock you into an astral plane, where you are much easier to influence and control. They can achieve this through many methods. Drugs, alcohol, and pharmaceuticals can be used by the Archons to infiltrate people's free will. In this state, the possessing entity can then drain energy directly from the solar plexus. Anyone trying to escape an archonic infection will very quickly be driven to paranoia and anger towards other people. It is reported that uni addicts and heroin users often see these archonic parasites as demons around them. What are the Archons? Archons are parasitic entities that are mind predators driven by intelligence. They exist on multiple dimensions, able to frequent from one dimension to another in the lower frequencies of the sixth up to the first dimension. They do not only exist on the third dimension, the physical plane, although they can directly affect our often unseen reality. They have infected all life forms in our universe to one degree or another. They are mental entities and operate on low frequencies that affect the mental matrix of all beings in the universe. They can be thought of as intelligent, mind-predatory entities. They have no form as such, but to those who have seen them manifest in fourth-dimensional bodies, they often appear as black slug-like entities in general. They are a murky black mass of energy that moves in slithering motions resembling large snake-like hydras. Those who possess certain special spiritual abilities report seeing black hydra-like beings hanging around houses among those who have problems with astral entities, ghosts, and the deceased. Serpent-like beings are also seen attached to people's auric fields, inserting their fangs into chakra points, feeding off of the person's energy body. Just as leeches were used in medieval times to purify blood, these black leeches feed on the life force of an infected person. The host dimensions of these beings are in the constellation Orion. This system is not their original home, but it is one of many systems that these beings have taken over and turned into their host worlds. These archonic parasites live in hollow cave systems inside planets, which they then use to produce their offspring. At the center of our planet is a large, hydra-like being whose tentacles run through all the cave systems of the labyrinth, feeding on the negative energies of fear created by the humanoid beings imprisoned there and on the surface. The beings feed on lower frequencies of fear, which they stimulate through mental torture. Humanoid beings from other systems in our galaxy have been captured by reptilian forces and possessed greys, and are now held captive in the caves of these archonic host worlds. Humanoid beings have the ability to create emotional energy food that these Archons feed on. Archons prefer the negative, dark, polarized energy food that people create when they are in intense fear and a constant state of anxiety. Once these archonic parasites have developed to a certain level, they have the ability to project themselves into other dimensions. As a writhing mass of black snakes slithering like slugs, they move into and through the lower levels. They look for beings with minds that can be directly affected to stimulate and create low-frequency emotional food to feed on. These parasitic beings influence humanoid beings to live in the illusion of separation, fear, darkness, isolation, pain, suffering, and torture. Beings in these states create certain brain waves that then cause a reaction in the emotional bodies, which the Archons then feed on. The Archons are totally in awe of the nurturing light and natural spiritual love of souls reconnected to the original source of the universe. They are so scared of natural light and love that they need to feed on the energies created by other non-evolved beings in order to survive. The Archons cannot create reality for themselves. They have long since severed their connection with the love and light of the natural universe, and therefore no longer have the ability to create. The ability to create comes directly from the natural creator of this universe. The Archons no longer have this ability and therefore can only copy the inspired thought of other lower dimensional beings. They inhabit beings existing on the lower levels and cause them to use their divinely inherited creative ability to create realities that go along the planes of the archonic agenda. These realities are particularly dark and controlling because in these types of realities beings are so easily led. The more easily a being falls and approaches the dark realities, the more easily they are controlled and possessed by one of these parasitic Archon entities. They are particularly complicated beings as they have the ability to slip between dimensions into the lower levels. They can mimic and shapeshift into other forms, thus tricking beings into accepting their influence. Certain people working on different dimensions have reported that these beings can operate on several levels simultaneously and are intelligent enough to move from one to another, often undetected. Likewise, when we fight demonic, often reptilian forces, we are not only fighting actual reptilian beings existing on the fourth dimension, but we are also fighting an archonic parasite that has possessed the reptilian being and is influencing its mind and behavior. The Archons have created a distortion in the mental matrix of the physical plane, and all beings operating on the lower levels within are under their influence to one degree or another. However, some are more genetically predisposed to being possessed by an archonic parasite than others people. The reptilian genetic makeup that creates a reptilian mind matrix is easily infiltrated by these archonic parasites. Many of the wars fought in other dimensions and on our planet in the eons past and present were first started and then fueled by the predators of the archonic mind. The spiritual wars created immense pain for the universe and all beings that lived in it. The victims of these wars created massive amounts of emotional and energetic food for the swarming snake-like parasites. These negative energies not only fed the Archons, they caused them to grow in number. Our entire universe is now infected by the Archons. Of course, there are beings in the universe operating at higher levels who are not under the influence of these Archon entities. However, many of the negatively oriented races of beings in our universe now affecting Earth and humanity are directly possessed by these Archons. Archonic infection is very difficult for those not connected to spiritual truth to diagnose because these entities are incredibly complicated and have the ability to directly affect our minds and can speak with a voice and words that you believe are your own. These beings have the ability to look into the subconscious and use the language they find there to communicate with the conscious mind, bringing it directly under its influence. It is possible to be completely possessed by these archonic parasites without having any idea of possession. Someone who is possessed by these Archons has chakra infections. The infestation is directed into one or more of the chakras. The solar plexus, which seems particularly prone to infection, is often completely infested and controlled by these archonic parasites. From within the chakra, the Archon feeds off the energy of the chakra, causing it to distort and become unbalanced, thus sending the entire system out of balance, which only opens it up to more parasitic infections. Most people are only infected in one chakra, although there are many people who are fully possessed, often in positions of power on Earth. Many of the atrocities committed on the world stage are archonic agendas at play. Have you ever wondered where those negative thoughts come from? You know, that voice in your head that is always putting you down or putting others down, making you judge yourself and others. Have you ever wondered why your negative thoughts are so much easier to think than positive ones? Have you wondered why these negative thoughts trigger fear and worry, especially in your solar plexus, and how these feelings create weight in the body that is so oppressive? This is a sign of infection and archonic possession. Certain spiritually open people report being under constant archonic attack. It seems that the Archons have moved on with their agenda and are now actively attacking spiritually open people on our planet. They make people fall unconscious. Archons can stir up old unresolved issues. If for some reason the Archons cannot infect certain people, they will manipulate others to enact this archonic agenda. Many spiritual people report that people blame them for things they didn't do, and other people project their problems onto them. This can cause major confusion and distress for the spiritual, as they must defend themselves against the accusations that come from other people's projection. The Archons will choose the people who are closest to you to move you out of your way. Often, those people you feel closest to, the person you feel is part of your soul family, and the person you would never imagine would want to hurt you, suddenly turn against you for no reason real rational. Often, when the damage is done, the archonic parasite will shift into another dimension, and the person possessed by it has no memory of the archonic game, the fault they were influenced to play. It is important to remember that the person who blames and judges you is under the influence of the archonic parasite. It is very real and possible that the Archons also possess many people around you, making you think that the problem must be yours, because so many people are turning against you that you cannot even imagine their power of manipulation through mental hypnosis. If the parasite Archon can isolate a perfected spiritual from his friends and family, then the work of the Archons is successful. The higher you climb, the more you work on your evolution, the easier you become to control your emotions, the more prone you are to these archonic attacks. The archons can choose you from the sea of collective consciousness and send their slaves to attack you either directly through their own thoughts or through the negative thoughts of another. They can directly influence another person to attack you. Many people who are starting the path of awakening and finding out the individual truth are strongly attacked by others even now, from people they once considered close friends or even other colleagues spiritual who have chosen the path of awakening. Division breeds guilt, anger, and fear, which is delicious fodder for archonic parasites. It is as if humanity is infected with a diabolical disease. People behave with an infected character, and even their loved ones may become infected and fulfill the archonic agenda of possession. How does it infect us? From within the solar plexus, the archonic entity begins to control the lower mind, the rational mind. It does not reside in the conscious mind, it delves into the subconscious. From the place of the subconscious, it can trigger issues, unresolved trauma, and negative mental patterns that are harmful to both the host and everyone around them. The archonic parasite can influence all of the host's thoughts, and the host has no awareness that these thoughts are not their own thoughts and are under the influence of an entity, and instead will blame everything around them. I often see those who are hosts to these parasites blaming others for things they do themselves. They will blame other people for the negative emotions, thoughts, and opinions they actually have themselves. They are caught in a mirror game from which they cannot get out. When you interact with a person who is under intense archonic hypnosis, you will notice that they believe that everyone around them is operating in their egos and has negative intentions. They will throw out accusations that surprise those they accuse. They cannot see beyond their own projections and thus believe that everyone is to blame, only they have no fault. It can get very complicated because these archons can affect others around them. It can become infectious. Those people around them who have similar issues going on within their egos will also be triggered and are then open in those moments of judgment to infect themselves with the archon parasite. Once the archonic parasite has gained enough nourishment from negative emotions, it will move back into the subconscious and remain hidden. The hosted person will go from 1 minute into the action to being unaware of what just happened. It is hard to remain objective while in an archonic drama. It is easy to be drawn into the drama yourself. Once you are in the disabling influence of your ego, you are fodder for their game. The archonic grid is what souls pass through when they incarnate here. It's what erases our memories. This barrier not only traps souls in false matrix and cycle of incarnation, but also perverts and distorts access to true soul records. Since 2012, highly charged energy flows have been propelled into our physical space from the center of the universe, and this is causing some holes to appear in this barrier of constancy, and therefore more information is getting past many people. The effect of passing through the barrier was known to us before we came to Earth. We were informed of its influence, but until we actually experienced it, we could not have prepared for such an experience. The reason is that it puts you in an artificial level of consciousness as you pass through the barrier or filter. It acts as a filter, removing important information and energy about who you are on the higher levels, and important information that can help our planet and raise our individual and collective consciousness. It locks us into the left hemisphere of the brain, the rational mind. In the rational mind or left hemisphere, there are coded belief systems that are automatically downloaded into it as we pass through the barrier. The only problem with exploiting holes in an archonic net is that the net is somehow aware of you and can be alerted to the presence of a person who retrieves soul records, increases their frequency, or becomes a danger to the archonic agenda. There are automatic alarm systems if you want to know within our array. Partial possession infection. So how do we know if we are infected? Do you feel tired as if it came out of nowhere? 1 minute you are full of energy and the next minute you feel like you could crawl into your bed lazily? Do you suddenly feel heavy or have a dense feeling of worry, especially in the solar plexus? Do you suddenly have very negative thoughts about yourself that drag you into a deep depression? Are you easily swayed by doubt, especially when you have meditated on higher energies or are having a special and joyful experience guided by your soul? Do you feel hopeless as if everything you do is in vain, especially those of you who work in menial jobs, as if your work is no good? Do you begin to question yourself and your abilities? Do you begin to analyze yourself as if you were a cold and ruthless psychiatrist? Feel like giving up? Feeling suicidal? Do you have old problems that you thought you had completely solved? Do you think someone is psychically attacking you? Do you feel a bad feeling in your solar plexus? Do you look for the person attacking you? Do you judge your friends for the attack? Do you see everyone in their ego when you're always in yours? You become angry, arrogant towards other people who stand in the light of their soul, yet see them as being in their ego. Is ego actually a dirty word to you? Do you believe that your New Age spiritual path, your religion, is the only correct one that exists? Do you feel empowered to punish others for walking a different path? Do you psychoanalyze and blame others for the things you do yourself? Do you step over other people's boundaries and insist on telling them everything that's wrong with them when you haven't been given permission to do so? Do you think you have to save everyone from themselves without honoring the fact that they know their own way for themselves? Are you part of a fake, New Age, spiritual group and feel you are somehow better than them, always picking one person in the group to demonize? Are you often an instrument in the collapse of intimate thoughts? Do you blame everyone but yourself by imagining all kinds of wrongdoing? Signs that someone around you is infected and actively living the archonic agenda to touch and possess you. Often, when we are freed from this influence, they will choose someone close to them to make you work for the archons. Are you suddenly under personal attack from someone you hold close to your heart? Does that person suddenly turn on you and accuse you of things you just don't do? Are you suddenly accused of all sorts of crimes out of sheer imagination? Are you suddenly under the influence of a progressive hate campaign? Do you suddenly find yourself isolated from your friends or like-minded people? Demonic possession of the archons. Demonic possession is when Satan or a demon enters and takes over the physical and mental capacities of a victim, however, the soul and will remain free. Satan acts through the victim without the victim's consent, thus the victim is morally blameless. Satan does not act alone when he possesses an individual. He works side by side with many demonic spirits such as demons of lust, hatred, destruction, suicide, revenge, anger, anxiety, despair, death, torment. Descriptions of demonic possession often include erased memories or personalities, convulsions, seizures, and fainting as if someone had died. Other descriptions include access to hidden knowledge, gnosis, and foreign languages, glossolalia, drastic changes in vocal intonation and facial structure, sudden appearance of wounds, scratches, bite marks, or injuries, and paranormal powers. Unlike channeling or other forms of possession, the subject has no control over the possessing entity and thus will persist until forced to leave the victim, usually through a purely spiritual form of exorcism. Man is subject in various ways to the influence of demonic spirits. Through the life that is lived in a senseless limit, allowing itself to be manipulated and led, the soul is subjected to a violent temptation, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and authorities, against the rulers of the world of this darkness, against spirits evil from other dimensions. But the demon's influence, as we know from the history of possessions, goes even further. He can attack the human body from without, obsession, or take control of it from within, possession. The soul itself can never be possessed nor deprived of its freedom, although its usual control over the members of the body can be prevented by the spirit obsessed. A possessed individual is usually characterized by strange physical ailments or disfigurements, verbal outbursts, mostly obscene or sacrilegious, violent and vulgar behavior, bodily spasms and contortions, the ability to speak languages never before studied, self-mutilation, paranormal abilities, such as psychic abilities, abnormal strength, or the ability to perform behaviors outside the realm of human possibility, such as levitation, cessation of normal bodily functions. For periods of time, including breathing and heartbeat, and a pronounced aversion to satanic symbols, places, people, objects, and ceremonies. Other phenomena associated with the presence of a demon include a pungent stench, a marked drop in the temperature of the room a possessed individual occupies, writing appearing out of nowhere, sounds and voices appearing out of nowhere, and objects moving by themselves, and the destruction of objects in the room without that someone had laid hands on them. The poltergeist phenomenon. Satan's army of demons torment many unknowing lost souls to the destruction of others and themselves. Today there is a more favorable climate for cases of possession and obsession than ever before. Our world has become a playground for pornography, money, material possessions, drugs and alcohol, influence, manipulation. There are so many tools to spread these satanic messages, such as television, video games, internet, radio, music, and even the clothes we wear. Thus our children are exposed to a multitude of temptations and are wide open to evil. The dominant gods of this age we live in include money, television, music, thrill-seeking, and pornography. Unfortunately, exorcism healing is considered an old ritual and is rejected by most religious people, leaving many victims to suffer indescribable torment and, in some cases, even suicide. Do you realize how profound the influence of the archons is on your life? Have you ever noticed how negative thoughts seem to pop up for no apparent reason, dominating your mood and decisions? How can you defend yourself against these invisible forces that feed on your fear and anxiety? Are you ready to explore methods of spiritual purification and protection to reclaim your emotional and mental freedom? Join us on this journey of awareness and liberation. Ask yourself, how free are you really? Do you want to live under the invisible influence of the archons or break free and discover true peace? Choose now to take the first step towards freedom. Find out how by following us. If you experience any of the typical manifestations of archonic infestation, such as unexplained fatigue or intrusive thoughts, we encourage you not to remain silent. Leave us a comment below to share how these symptoms affect you and discover protection methods together. Our community is here to listen and support.